Bora was not supposed to be here. She was supposed to be on a cruise ship, drinking tea and watching the stars pass by her window. She was supposed to be retired. She was 67 years old, and she had spent 40 years teaching children in Bazan. She had earned her rest, but the universe, it seemed, had other plans. The transport ship she boarded had taken a wrong turn somewhere between Earth and the vacation station. An emergency signal had pulled them off course. And now Bora found herself standing in the middle of Station Horizon 7. A massive military academy floating in the darkness of space thought her grandson, Park Taiho, worked here as a translator. When he saw her walking off the transport with her small suitcase and confused expression, he nearly dropped his coffee. "Grandmother, what are you doing here?" "I have no idea," Bora said. "But your mother is going to be very upset with someone." Taiho spent the next 3 hours trying to arrange return transport. But there were no ships heading back to Earth for at least a week. The station was busy with some kind of training exercise, and all civilian transport had been delayed. "Just stay with me," Taiho said. "1 week. I have a nice room. You can rest." Bora looked around at the cold metal walls and the strange aliens walking past her. She sighed. "Fine, but I am not happy about this." The first 2 days were boring. Bora stayed in Taiho's small room, reading old books on her tablet and complaining about the food. The station's meals were nutritious, but they had no soul. No flavor. She missed her kitchen back home. On the 3rd day, she decided to take a walk. The station was enormous. Long corridors stretched in every direction, marked with symbols she could not read. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved past her. Some were tall and covered in scales. Others floated through the air like jellyfish. A few looked almost human, except for their blue skin or extra arms. Bora walked slowly, looking at everything with curious eyes. She had lived a long life, but she had never imagined anything like this thought at some point. She took a wrong turn. The corridor she entered was quieter than the others. The lights were dimmer. She could hear a strange sound coming from somewhere ahead. It was a low, rumbling noise, almost like crying, but deeper. Rougher Bora followed the sound. She found herself in front of a large door marked with symbols she did not understand. The door was slightly open. She pushed it gently and stepped inside. The room was a dormitory. Rows of bunks lined the walls, each one sized for something much larger than a human. The blankets were thick and heavy. The pillows were huge, and under one of the bunks, pressed into the corner, was a creature. It was a cub. That was the only word Bora could think of to describe it. It looked like a lion, but with 6 legs instead of 4. Its fur was golden, and its eyes were large and amber-colored. It was about the size of a large dog, though Bora suspected it would grow much bigger. The cub was shaking Dodd. It stared at Bora with wide, terrified eyes. Its whole body trembled, but it made no sound. Not a whimper, not a cry. It just shook in silence, as if making noise was forbidden. Bora's heart broke a little. She had seen this before. Not in alien cubs, of course, but in children. Children who had learned that crying meant punishment. Children who had been taught to swallow their pain and pretend everything was fine. Bora did not approach the cub. She knew better than that. Instead, she sat down on the cold floor, a few feet away from the bunk. She moved slowly, calmly, like she had done 1,000 times before with frightened students. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small container. Inside were rice cakes. She had made them before leaving Earth, thinking she might want a snack on the cruise. She opened the container and set it on the floor between herself and the cub. Then she began to hum Dodd. It was an old song, a lullaby her mother used to sing to her when she was small. Bora did not have a beautiful voice, but the melody was soft and gentle. It filled the quiet room like warm water. The cub watched her. Minutes passed. Bora kept humming. She did not look directly at the cub. She just sat there, calm and patient, as if she had all the time in the world. Slowly, the cub began to move. It crept out from under the bunk, one careful step at a time. Its eyes never left Bora's face. When it reached the container of rice cakes, it sniffed them cautiously. Bora smiled. "Go ahead. They are good." The cub took one and ate it. Then another. Then it sat down next to Bora and pressed its warm body against her side. More movement. Bora looked up and saw other cubs emerging from the shadows. One from behind a cabinet. 2 from the bathroom. 4 more from various bunks. They approached slowly, drawn by the smell of food and the sound of her voice. Within an hour, Bora was surrounded. 7 cubs lay around her in a pile. Their massive paws rested on her lap, her shoulders, her legs. They were all asleep, their breathing slow and peaceful. One of them made a soft purring sound that vibrated through Bora's entire body. She smiled and kept humming. That was how Taiho found her. He burst through the door, frantic with worry. He had been searching for her for hours. When he saw her sitting on the floor, buried under a pile of sleeping alien cubs, he stopped dead. "Grandmother?" "She," Bora whispered. "They are sleeping." "But how?" "These are Velith cubs. They have been driving everyone crazy. They bite. They attack. They sent 4 instructors to the medical bay. They are just scared," Bora said simply. "Poor things. All alone out here. No one to hold them." Taiho stared at her. He had no words. High above them, in the security office, Director Torvald watched the footage on his screen. He was an insectoid, 8 feet tall, with compound eyes and a hard shell covering his body. He had directed this academy for 30 years. He had seen warriors and diplomats and geniuses pass through these halls. He had never seen anything like this. An old human woman, sitting on the floor, singing to the most difficult cadets in the academy's history. And they were sleeping around her like newborns. Torvald turned to his aide. "Find out everything about this human female, immediately." His aide nodded and hurried away. Torvald looked back at the screen. The old woman was still humming, her wrinkled hand gently stroking the fur of the cub closest to her. "Interesting," he said quietly. "Very interesting." Director Torvald came to see Bora the next morning. He was massive. His body was covered in a dark shell that clicked when he moved. His eyes were like 2 black mirrors, reflecting everything and revealing nothing. When he spoke, his voice was deep and buzzing. "Mrs. Yoon, I have a proposal for you." Bora sat in her grandson's small room, sipping tea from a cup she had brought from Earth. She looked up at the towering alien without fear. She had faced angry parents, stubborn principals, and one very difficult school inspector. This was nothing new. "I am listening," she said. "The Velith cubs you encountered yesterday are a problem. They have been here for 2 months. In that time, they have injured 4 instructors, destroyed training equipment, and refused every attempt at education. We have tried discipline. We have tried isolation. Nothing works." Torvald paused. His compound eyes seemed to study her carefully. "And then you walked into their dormitory and put them to sleep with rice cakes and a song." "They were tired," Bora said, "and hungry, and scared. It was not complicated. I would like you to become their caretaker. Officially, we will pay you well. You will have private quarters, full access to the station's facilities, and any supplies you need." Bora set down her teacup. "Director, I am 67 years old. I taught children for 40 years. I buried my husband 3 years ago. I raised 2 children and 4 grandchildren. I am tired. I came here by accident, and I want to go home." "I understand," Torvald said. "But consider this. Those cubs have nowhere else to go. Their parents are warriors stationed on the front lines. They were sent here for training because the Veleth believe strength must be built early. But they are failing. And if they continue to fail, they will be sent to a correction facility. What happens there? Torvald was silent for a moment. Their weakness will be removed through methods I do not personally agree with. Bora felt something cold settle in her stomach. She had heard stories like this before. On Earth, in history books, in the news. Children taken away to have their spirits broken and rebuilt into something harder, something colder. She had fought against such things her entire career. "Let me think about it," she said. That night, Taiho came to her with a translation. "Grandmother, I pulled the audio from your visit yesterday. The cubs were talking in their sleep. One word over and over. What word?" Taiho looked at her with soft eyes. "The Veleth word for safe." Bora closed her eyes. She thought about her husband, who had died peacefully in their bed 3 years ago. She thought about her own children, grown now, living their own lives. She thought about all the students she had taught over the decades. Thousands of children who had passed through her classroom. She had always told them the same thing. When someone needs you, you help them. That is what good people do. She opened her eyes. "Tell Director Torvald I accept. But I have conditions." The next day, Bora moved into new quarters near the Cubs' dormitory. It was a nice room, bigger than anything she had lived in since her house in Bazan. But she did not care about the room. She cared about the 7 young creatures waiting for her next door. She started with small things. First, she established a schedule. The cubs had been living in chaos with no regular routine. Bora changed that. Wake up at the same time every day. Meals at the same time. Training at the same time. And most importantly, rest at the same time. Nap time, she announced on the first day, is mandatory. The cubs looked at her with confusion. The Veleth cultural officer, a scarred warrior named Krath Den, looked at her with horror. "Warriors do not nap," he said. "Sleep is for the weak." "Sleep is for everyone," Bora replied. "And these are not warriors. They are children. They need rest." Krath Den argued. He threatened. He appealed to Director Torvald. But Bora did not move. And in the end, Torvald sided with her. "She has 1 month," the director said. "Let her try." The naps changed everything. The cubs had been exhausted. They had been running on fear and anger for months, their small bodies pushed to the limit. When Bora made them rest, really rest, they began to calm down. The biting stopped. The attacks stopped. They still growled sometimes, but there was less rage behind it. Next, Bora taught them to eat together. Before, the cubs had eaten their meals hunched over their plates, gulping down food as fast as possible. It was survival behavior. The kind of eating you did when you expected someone to take your food. Away. Bora put an end to it. She set up a proper table in the dormitory. She made them sit together, wait for everyone to be served, and eat slowly. She taught them the Korean word for thank you and made them say it before every meal. The cubs thought she was strange, but they obeyed. Bora also learned their names. All 7 of them. Rin was the smallest, the one she had found hiding under the bunk. She was quiet and nervous, always watching for danger. Sala was the largest, a golden-furred cub with angry eyes and a scar across her nose. She was the leader of the group and the most aggressive. Den was the youngest, barely weaned from his mother. He followed Bora everywhere, like a shadow. The others were Myra, Tak, Hiva, and Jal. Each one different. Each one carrying their own pain. Bora treated them all the same way, with patience, with kindness, and with firm expectations. She did not yell at them. She did not hit them. She did not threaten them with punishment. When they misbehaved, she simply looked at them with disappointed eyes and asked, "Is this who you want to be?" It was more effective than any punishment. The real breakthrough came 3 weeks in. Sala, the big one, broke a training drone during a practice session. She smashed it with her paws until it was nothing but sparks and metal. The Academy protocol called for isolation and a formal reprimand. Bora ignored the protocol. She took Sala to a quiet corner of the dormitory and sat down across from her. The cub was still breathing hard, her fur standing on end. "What happened?" Bora asked. Sala did not answer. "I am not angry," Bora said gently. "I just want to understand." Silence. "You know, when I was young, I used to break things too. When I was sad, when I was angry, when I did not know how to say what I was feeling." Sala's ears twitched. "My mother died when I was 10, Bora continued. "I was told to be strong, to not cry, to make my family proud. So I did not cry. I held it all inside. And then one day, I broke every dish in our kitchen." She smiled at the memory. "My father was not angry. He just sat with me in the broken pieces and asked me what was wrong. And finally, I told him. I told him I missed my mother. I told him I was scared. I told him everything." Sala was staring at her now. "So I am asking you, little one, what is wrong?" The silence stretched on. Then, slowly, Sala spoke. "My mother is dead." The words came out rough and broken. "She died in battle 8 months ago. They told me to be proud. They told me she died with honor. But I am not proud. I am—" She stopped. Her whole body shook. "You are sad," Bora said softly. "And that is allowed." Sala broke. The tears came like a storm. Great heaving sobs that shook her entire body. She cried like she had never cried before, because she had never been allowed to. Bora moved forward and wrapped her arms around the massive cub. She held her tight and did not let go. "I know," she whispered. "I know. Let it out. I am here." From the doorway, the other cubs watched. They had never seen anything like this. An adult allowing grief, welcoming it, holding it. Something changed in them that night. Bora did not know it yet, but she had just begun something that would shake the entire galaxy. Ambassador Krathvon arrived on station, Horizon 7 without warning. He was the official representative of the Velith people. A massive warrior, nearly 8 feet tall, covered in battle scars and decorated with medals from a dozen campaigns. His golden fur was streaked with gray, and his eyes were cold as winter stone. He came to inspect the cubs. And what he found made his blood boil. The dormitory had been transformed. Where there had once been bare metal bunks, there were now soft blankets and cushions. Pictures hung on the walls. A small table sat in the corner, covered with cups and plates and strange human food. And the cubs themselves? They were napping. All 7 of them lay in a pile on the floor, curled around each other like a litter of newborns. Their breathing was slow and peaceful. One of them, the big female with the scar, was actually purring. In the middle of them sat a small old human woman, reading from a tablet and occasionally patting a furry head. Krathvon stood in the doorway and stared. "What is this?" Bora looked up. She studied the massive warrior for a moment, then gently extracted herself from the pile of sleeping cubs. She walked toward him slowly, adjusting her reading glasses. "You must be the ambassador. I am Yoon Bora. Would you like some tea?" "I do not want tea," Krathvon growled. "I want to know what you have done to our children." "I have taken care of them. You have weakened them." The ambassador's voice rose. "Look at them, sleeping in the middle of the day, crying, showing affection. This is not the Velith way." Bora met his gaze without flinching. "And what is the Velith way?" "Strength, discipline, control. Our children are born warriors." They must be hard. They must be cold. They must feel nothing. Feel nothing? Bora repeated. Is that what you want for them? It is what they need to survive. Behind them, the cubs were beginning to stir. Rin woke first, her amber eyes finding Bora immediately. When she saw the massive warrior standing in the doorway, she shrank back. Bora noticed. She stepped between Rin and the ambassador, placing herself as a shield. These children were terrified when I found them, she said, her voice calm but firm. They attacked instructors because they were afraid. They refused to learn because they trusted no one. They bit and scratched and screamed because that was the only way they knew to express their pain. Krath Von sneered. Pain is weakness. Pain is truth, Bora replied. And these children had so much truth locked inside them that it was poisoning them. I simply gave them permission to let it out. The ambassador leaned down, bringing his scarred face close to Bora's. He was trying to intimidate her. She could smell his breath, hot and sharp. You are a soft species, he said. You humans. You cry over everything. You hug and kiss and speak of feelings. You are weak. Bora did not step back. My grandfather, she said quietly, was captured by enemy soldiers during a war. They tortured him for 3 months. They broke his bones. They starved him. They tried to break his spirit. But he survived. Do you know why? Krath Von said nothing. Because he loved his family. Because every time they hurt him, he thought of his wife and children waiting for him at home. That love gave him the strength to endure anything. That is not weakness. That is the most powerful force in the universe. She straightened her back. I have taught these children to feel. And because they feel, they will fight harder than any warrior who feels nothing. Because they will have something worth fighting for. For a long moment, the ambassador stared at her. Then he stepped back. We will see, he said coldly. I am ordering a formal combat assessment. The cubs will be tested in 3 days. If they fail, you will be removed, and they will be sent to the correction facility for proper training. He turned and walked away. Bora watched him go. Her hands were shaking slightly, but she did not let it show. Behind her, Sala spoke. Grandmother, what is going to happen? Bora turned to face her children. All 7 of them were awake now, their eyes wide with fear. She smiled. We are going to show them what you can do. The next 3 days were intense. During the mornings and afternoons, the cubs trained with the academy's combat instructors. They learned fighting techniques, tactical movements, and weapons handling. Bora did not interfere with this. She knew nothing about combat, but in the evenings, she taught them something different. She told them stories about human history, about wars fought and won by people who had nothing but hope, about her own grandfather, who survived imprisonment through the power of love, about ordinary women and men who became heroes because they refused to give up. Being brave does not mean having no fear, she told them. Being brave means being afraid but doing the right thing anyway. She taught them a phrase in Korean. She made them repeat it until they knew it by heart. It means, let us go together. When you are scared, when you think you cannot go on, say these words. Remember that you are not alone. The cubs practiced the phrase until it rolled off their tongues easily. On the night before the assessment, Rin came to Bora's room. Grandmother, I am afraid. Bora patted the space beside her on the bed. Rin climbed up and curled against her side, her massive body somehow making itself small. What are you afraid of? Failing. Being sent away. Losing you. Bora stroked the cub's golden fur. Rin, listen to me. Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know something. I am proud of you. All of you. Not because of how well you fight, but because of how hard you have tried. Because of how much you have grown. But what if we fail? Then I will find a way back to you. I promise. Rin pressed closer. Do you promise? I promise. The next morning, the Cubs entered the combat simulation chamber. Ambassador Krath Vaughn watched from the observation deck, along with Director Toval and a dozen other officials. Bora stood in the corner, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. The simulation began. The Cubs faced scenario after scenario. Combat drones attacked from all directions. Obstacles blocked their path. Traps sprung from the floor and walls. It was a test designed for adult soldiers, compressed and modified for younger bodies. At first, the Cubs struggled. They were scared. They made mistakes. Rin froze in the middle of a firefight, unable to move. But then something changed. Then, the smallest and youngest of the group ran to Rin's side. He grabbed her paw and spoke. Rin blinked. She looked at him, and then she moved. From that moment on, the Cubs fought as one. When Sala fell, wounded by a training beam, 2 others dragged her to safety while the rest provided cover. When Tak got separated from the group, Hiva went back for him despite the danger. When they faced a final obstacle, a barrier too high for any single Cub to climb, they stacked themselves and helped each other over. They did not fight as individuals. They fought as a family. The simulation ended. The observation deck was silent. Director Torval checked the results. Then he checked them again. His compound eyes widened. The Cubs have achieved the highest score in Academy history for their age group. Ambassador Krath Vaughn stared at the screen. His face was unreadable. Bora smiled quietly to herself. Below, in the simulation chamber, the Cubs hugged each other and cheered. Sala looked up at the observation window and found Bora's face. She raised her paw in a wave. Bora waved back. The old woman from Bizon had done something the entire galaxy thought was impossible. She had turned the Academy's worst students into its best, and she had done it with rice cakes and kindness. The results spread through Station Horizon 7 like wildfire. Everyone was talking about the Cubs. About the old human woman who had done what 4 trained instructors could not. About the highest scores in Academy history. Ambassador Krath Vaughn demanded a review. He claimed the simulation was rigged. He sent formal complaints to the Velith High Council. He tried everything he could to discredit what had happened. But the data was clear. The recordings were clean. There was no trick. The Cubs had simply performed better than anyone expected. Director Torval called a meeting with the ambassador. Your Cubs were not weakened, he said. They were unified. Their emotional bonds made them stronger, not weaker. They protected each other. They fought for each other. That is something our training programs have never been able to teach. Krath Vaughn was silent. Perhaps, Torval continued, there is something to be learned from this human approach. The ambassador left the station the next day. He did not say goodbye to the Cubs. He did not acknowledge Bora. He simply walked onto his ship and flew away. But something had changed in the galaxy's understanding of humans. A tiny crack in the wall. A small seed of doubt about whether strength really meant what everyone thought it meant. Word continued to spread. Other species on the station began to notice Bora. They watched her walk through the corridors with the Velith Cubs trailing behind. Or like ducklings. They saw how the Cubs behaved now. Calm, focused, respectful. They heard about the methods she used. A delegation of Celian parents approached her one morning. The Celians were small reptilian creatures, about the size of human children. They had scales that changed color with their emotions and large, nervous eyes. Their hatchlings were known for being anxious and easily frightened. Elder Yun, one of them said, using a title of respect. We have heard about what you did with the Velith Cubs. Our own hatchlings are struggling. They are afraid of everything. They hide in their rooms and refuse to come out. The instructors do not know what to do. Bora looked at the worried parents. Behind them, she could see 3 tiny Selene hatchlings peeking out from behind a corner. Their scales were pale with fear. "I'm not sure I can help," Bora said. "I only know human children. And Velith cubs, a little bit now." "Please," another parent said. "We have tried everything." Bora sighed. She looked at the hatchlings again. They reminded her of Rin, hiding under that bunk. "Fine. Bring them to me tomorrow afternoon. But I am going to need more rice cakes." The Selene hatchlings were different from the Velith cubs. The cubs had been aggressive. Their fear turned outward into anger. The hatchlings were the opposite. Their fear turned inward, making them shrink and hide and disappear. Bora adjusted her approach. She did not make the hatchlings sit with her. Instead, she sat near them and did quiet activities. She drew pictures. She folded paper into shapes. She hummed her old songs. Slowly, over days, the hatchlings came closer. They watched her fold paper. They tried to copy her. When they made mistakes, she smiled and showed them again. She learned their names. She learned their fears. She learned that one of them was terrified of loud noises. Another was afraid of the dark. And the third was simply afraid of everything because her parents had been in an accident. When she was very young, Bora did not push them. She let them come to her at their own pace. Within 2 weeks, the hatchlings were transformed. They still had their fears, but they also had tools to manage them. They knew breathing exercises. They knew that they could ask for help. They knew that being afraid was normal. More requests came in. A pair of Morvith orphans. The Morvith were floating creatures like jellyfish made of light. They communicated through color patterns, not sound. Their orphans had been found drifting alone in space, and they had not communicated with anyone since their rescue. Bora spent hours learning to read their color patterns. She worked with Taiho to develop a simple translation system. And one day, the orphans finally responded to her. They flashed a pattern that meant grandmother. Bora cried. The Academy Board met an emergency session. "We have a situation," Director Torval said. "Mrs. Yoon has become essential to multiple programs. We need to formalize her position." "She is a human," one board member said. "A civilian. She has no training. She has 40 years of experience teaching children," Torval replied. "And her results speak for themselves." The debate lasted for hours. But in the end, the vote was unanimous. Bora was granted the title of Academy Elder. It was a position that had not existed for 300 years. She would serve as a cultural advisor and caretaker for all young species at the station. And at her very firm insistence, one other change was made. The Academy's daily schedule was officially restructured. Mandatory rest. Period. 14 o'clock to 15:30. Official memo simply read, "Grandmothers." Nap time. That evening, Bora sat alone in her quarters. The room was nice. Much bigger than anything she had lived in since her house in Bizen. The window looked out at the stars. The bed was soft. The walls were warm, but she felt empty. She pulled out a small photograph from her bag. It was old, worn at the edges, showing a young man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Her husband. Gone 3 years now. Taiho found her there, crying softly. "Grandmother, are you okay?" Bora wiped her eyes quickly. "I am fine. Just thinking. About grandfather?" "Yes." She looked at the photo again. "I thought I was done, Taiho. I thought my work was finished. I thought I would spend my last years resting and waiting to see him again." She gestured at the room around her. "And now look at me. Teaching aliens. At my age. In outer space." Taiho sat down beside her. "Are you unhappy?" "No." She smiled through her tears. "No, I am not unhappy. I am surprised. I did not know I still had so much to give. I did not know there were so many children out here who needed someone. She looked at the photograph again. Your grandfather would have laughed at me. He would have said I was crazy. And then he would have made me tea and told me he was proud. Taiho put his arm around her shoulders. I am proud too, grandmother. They sat together in silence for a while, looking at the stars. Taiho? Yes, I think I am going to stay. For a while, at least. There is work to do here. Taiho smiled. The family will miss you. They can visit, and I can send messages. But these children need me. All of them. The cubs, the hatchlings, the orphans. They need someone to show them that it is okay to be afraid, and it is okay to cry, and it is okay to ask for help. She squeezed her grandson's hand. That is what teachers do. We find the ones who are lost and help them find their way. And it seems the universe has decided that I am not done teaching yet. Outside her window, the stars continued their eternal dance. Somewhere on the station, 7 Velith cubs were sleeping peacefully, dreaming of a small human woman who smelled like rice cakes and hummed old songs. And in the depths of space, word was spreading there was a human on Station Horizon 7, an old woman with gentle hands and fierce eyes. She could tame any child, soothe any fear, heal any wound. They called her grandmother, and she was just getting started. 3 years passed. Station Horizon 7 had changed. The cold metal corridors were warmer now, decorated with art made by students of every species. The mess hall served foods from 100 different worlds, including Korean dishes that Bora had taught the kitchen staff to make. Laughter echoed through the hall's and every day, at exactly 14 o'clock, the entire station went quiet. Grandmother's nap time was sacred. Bora had grown older. Her hair was completely white now, and she walked with a cane. But her eyes were still sharp, and her voice was still strong. The Velith cubs were no longer cubs. They had grown into young cadets, nearly adult-sized, with powerful bodies and confident strides. But they still visited Bora every evening. They still called her grandmother. And they still insisted on nap time, even though they were almost too big to fit on her floor. Rin had become a skilled pilot. Sala was training to be a combat leader. Den, the little one who used to follow Bora like a shadow, had discovered a talent for medicine. The graduation ceremony was approaching. Bora would present each of them with a small gift, a ribbon tied in a traditional Korean knot. It was a new tradition she had started. Students from every species now wore these ribbons with pride. 1 week before graduation, the emergency alarm sounded. A distress signal had reached the station. A colonial transport ship had suffered engine failure near a hostile border zone. The ship was carrying 200 civilians, including dozens of children from multiple species. The Academy scrambled a rescue team. The Velith cadets volunteered immediately. All 7 of them. Bora's children. She found them in the hangar bay, suiting up for the mission. Sala was leading the final equipment check. When she saw Bora approaching, she stopped. Grandmother, you should not be here. You should rest. I needed to see you before you go. The other cadets gathered around. Rin, Den, Myra, Tak, Hiva, Jal, her children. Grown now, but still hers. Sala knelt down so that her eyes were level with Bora's. We might not come back, grandmother. This mission is dangerous. Bora reached up and adjusted the insignia on Sala's chest. Her old hands were steady. Then you will die knowing you were loved. And you will die protecting others who deserve to be loved too. That is not a small thing. She cupped Sala's scarred face in her hands. You are not going out there to prove you are strong. You are going out there because there are children who are scared, just like you were once. Children who need someone to hold them and tell them it will be okay. She pressed her forehead to Sala's, the way she had done 1,000 times before. "Little one, go together. Come home together." Sala's eyes were wet. "We will, grandmother. We promise." The rescue mission was brutal. The transport ship was badly damaged, spinning slowly toward hostile territory. Enemy fighters had detected the distress signal and were closing in. The rescue team had a small window to extract the civilians before the fighting started. Sala led her team into the wreckage. The corridors were dark and filled with smoke. Emergency lights flickered. Somewhere in the distance, children were crying. The Velith cadets moved fast. They found survivors huddled in the cargo hold. Families holding each other. Children screaming for their parents. Injured passengers bleeding on the floor. Rin organized the evacuation. Den treated the wounded with quick, skilled hands. The others carried passengers who could not walk, some of them lifting 3 or 4 at a time. Enemy fighters arrived before they could finish. The first attack hit the transport hard. The hull buckled. Fire spread through the corridors. Sala had to make a choice. Leave now with the survivors they had, or stay and risk everyone for the ones still trapped. She thought of grandmother. "Go together," she had said. "Come home together." Sala looked at her team. "We are not leaving anyone behind. Mira, Tech, hold the rear. Everyone else, move." They fought through the burning ship. Enemy soldiers boarded, and the cadets met them head-on. It was the hardest battle of their lives. Hiva took a blast to the shoulder. Joel was nearly crushed by falling debris. But they kept moving. They found the last survivors in the engine room. 3 Salian hatchlings, their scales pale with terror, hiding in a corner. Sala recognized them. They were graduates of Bora's program. She had seen them learning to fold paper and doing breathing exercises. "It is okay," she said softly. "We are here. The voice you selected does not support this language. Please click the upper right corner to switch to another voice. Let us go together." The hatchlings looked at her with wide eyes. One of them spoke. "You know grandmother's words?" "She taught them to us too," Sala said. "Now come. We need to move." The rescue team made it back to the shuttle with seconds to spare. The transport ship exploded behind them as they flew away. Enemy fighters pursued, but reinforcements from Station Horizon 7 arrived, just in time to drive them off. The shuttle docked at the station 3 hours later. Bora was waiting at the hangar bay. She had refused to leave, refused to sleep, refused to do anything except stand there and wait. The doors opened. The cadets emerged, battered and exhausted. Sala walked in front, still carrying a small Selian hatchling who refused to let go of her neck. "We came home, grandmother." Bora stepped forward. Her cane clattered to the floor as she opened her arms. Sala dropped to her knees and wrapped herself around the small human woman. The other cadets piled on. For a moment, they were cubs again, sleeping on the dormitory floor, safe in the warmth of grandmother's embrace. "Yes, you did," Bora whispered. "Yes, you did." Years passed. Bora grew older and frailer. Her steps became slower. Her voice became softer. But she never stopped teaching. Every day, until the very end, she sat with the young ones and told them stories and taught them to be brave. She died peacefully in her sleep. Surrounded by the sounds of the station, she had transformed. Rin was holding one hand. Sala was holding the other. All 7 of her first children were there, along with dozens of others she had helped raise over the years. Her last words were Korean. A lullaby. The same one she had hummed on that first day, when a frightened cub crept out from under a bunk to eat her rice cakes. The funeral was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Representatives from every species in the galactic unity attended. Warriors wept openly. Diplomats recited her lullaby, having learned the words by heart. The Velith High Council sent a formal apology for the way Ambassador Krath Vaughn had treated her. The Celian government declared a day of mourning. The Academy erected a statue in the central courtyard. It showed a small human woman sitting cross-legged on the ground. Around her were children of a dozen different species, cubs and hatchlings and floaters and many more. They were all looking at her with love. The plaque at the base read, Umbora, Academy Elder. She taught the galaxy that strength is not the absence of tears, but the courage to let them fall. And beneath that, in smaller letters, nap time is mandatory. Rin visited the statue every year on the anniversary of grandmother's death. She was a captain now, commanding her own ship, responsible for her own crew. She had seen battle. She had saved lives. She had done things that would have made grandmother proud. But every year, on this day, she set everything aside and returned to Station Horizon-7. She brought rice cakes. She had learned to make them herself after many failed attempts. They were not quite as good as grandmother's, but they were close. She sat beside the statue and ate one. Then she talked. She told grandmother about the cubs she was responsible for now. Young Vela's soldiers who reminded her so much of herself at that age. Angry, scared, alone. She told grandmother about the schools being built on her homeworld based on human methods. Schools where crying was allowed, where rest was valued, where love was not considered weakness. She told grandmother about the new phrase the Velith warriors had adopted. They said it before every battle now, instead of the old war cries. Let us go together. When she was done talking, Rin stood up and touched the statue's cold metal hand. I miss you, grandmother, every day, but I carry you with me in everything I do. She wiped her eyes. We are still going together. She turned and walked away. Behind her, the statue smiled its eternal smile. A small human woman, surrounded by alien children, in a galaxy that had learned what humans had always known, that love is the strongest force in the universe, that kindness is not weakness, and that sometimes the mightiest warriors are little old ladies with rice cakes and lullabies.